Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Auto Buyer's Guide podcast. Travis is on vacation, but Jared from Car Buzz is here. Jared, where can they find all the buzzing on cars?
Well, you can read my work at carbuzz.com. You can find everything on the carbuzz.com TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and I have personal channels at Car Guy Jared on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. That is my personal channels.
So let's dive into it. Today's episode, we're going to be wide-ranging. We're going to be talking about Jeep's EV problems. Why do they have so many? We're going to be talking hybrids, plug-in hybrids, Honda's brand new hybrid systems. Of course, the new BMW iX3 coming to the US soon. We'll be diving under the hood of Volvo and Polestar and asking all the burning questions that we had this week. So, Jared, let's talk about the news first. What struck you this last week?
Well, while I was gallivanting around in Europe, doing stuff with BMW and Audi, I found some news that I thought was really interesting. As General Motors, we all know, has been pivoting away from CarPlay, saying that, well, Tesla has been so successful without it. Now we're hearing reports that Tesla might actually be integrating CarPlay into their vehicles, which would be such shocking news if that is actually the case, that Tesla is going to be putting CarPlay into their vehicles. I think Tesla owners, they say they don't need it, but I think that would be really interesting after all these years that Tesla did finally come around to putting it in.
Yeah, I bet not only will Tesla owners actually use it, I bet that Tesla will then come and start screaming from the mountaintops, telling us how many of their users use it and how often they use it. We'll have all sorts of data around it. What do you think it's going to look like? This is sort of my question. Part of it is, will they do it? Because we've heard rumors for years. How real do we think it is? I'm guessing maybe 80% chance now. And second, what will it look like? Because my guess on that front is that Tesla's going to keep it to like some really tiny portion of the screen.
Right, because with a Tesla, you don't have a speedometer, so you have to leave some portion of that open. So you obviously can't do. A lot of automakers now have been doing this thing where you get like a little set of arrows and you can kind of minimize it, maximize it, whatever. So how does that functionality work on a Tesla screen, where with Tesla, you not only have the speedometer, but you also have that kind of screen that shows where all the other cars are in relation to where your vehicle is. On something like the Cybertruck, you might have your little mirror that shows, because you literally can't see out of the back of a Cybertruck.
Yeah.
So yeah, and you can't overlay that on top of CarPlay, or at least I don't think Apple would suddenly unlock that ability just for Tesla. So how are they going to do some small things like that? So that might limit the size of something like CarPlay. I know you've probably driven a few Lucid vehicles, and the shape of the screen obviously limits you with CarPlay. Lucid has this very beautiful looking screen that kind of tapers off to the side, which looks great. But then when you're using CarPlay, it limits how much CarPlay real estate you have, because CarPlay can't just kind of taper the icons off to the side, so you just kind of have CarPlay end, and then it just kind of has the wallpaper off to the side. And you're like, well, that's dumb. That's wasted real estate there. So it'll be really interesting to see how that does look on a Tesla screen.
I will say, at least in Apple's defense, they do have the wallpaper thing. So the wallpaper kind of integrates and gives it that more seamless look. Because Cadillac has that problem too with the curvy screen. But no, I'm thinking there, as far as I have been able to see, there's no minimum screen size for CarPlay. And it appears that it will work on really low res displays. So I'm just in my brain thinking, what if Tesla deliberately carved out like a teeny tiny little window and made it like 4 or 5 inches across, just like the bare minimum for CarPlay? And maybe you could drag it somewhere, or you could put it somewhere on the screen. But I'm thinking, if the goal is to give us some user interface with Apple, but also to maintain that desire for everybody doing their navigation routing in the built-in screen and the built-in software, that kind of would do it. Because if Apple CarPlay was so ridiculously small that it would be useless for Waze, I'd still navigate on the one, but then I could listen to my podcasts, like this podcast, in my CarPlay.
Yeah, I think the thing is, what do you need CarPlay for on a Tesla? And what has Tesla been able to get away with for all these years that their customer base has been so happy with? And it's funny because I was just in Spain. I just got back from Spain recently driving the new BMW iX3, and I actually got a chance to speak with some of their UI designers with the new BMW operating system X. And I had this conversation with them about like what do you actually need CarPlay for? And I think users on Instagram, when they're tearing GM apart on this, and you maybe feel a little differently about this than I do, I think GM's system is pretty decent, but there is one major thing that General Motors doesn't do. And honestly, I don't think a single automaker does that CarPlay and Android Auto does very well. And that is text messaging. The getting of displaying, receiving, and responding to a text message while you're driving in a safe, effective, and easy way. There is no automaker on earth, Tesla included, that does that well, as good as CarPlay or Android Auto. So I think whatever automaker can do that first can replace CarPlay and Android Auto, because Spotify, Pandora, whatever, those pretty easy. Like, and I think most automakers have done. Maybe you're a weirdo and you have some streaming app that's super weird and the automaker does 1%. But like, if you use Spotify, you're probably covered by GM, BMW, what have you, by their user interface. But the texting, nobody has replaced that yet. Rivian, they keep saying, Rivian keeps telling me that they are coming out with the texting software. I'm like, okay, where is it? And I spoke with BMW, and they said European customers, they don't really do this. They don't really like text while I'm like, so you guys just don't answer text while you're driving?
They don't drink while they're driving either. They look at us like, why do you need cup holders? You're not supposed to be doing anything other than driving. And I'm like, because I got a drink with me.
Right. So that was like a whole market different. I just drove a BMW 2002, which is a 70s BMW. The car had 3 ashtrays, but 0 cup holders. So this just goes to show you market differences and how cars were built, even, way back when. So that's my big thing when it comes to CarPlay. And GM, to their credit, does now have a text message alert system. Have you tried to use it in any of the new Ultium cars?
I did. It's not great.
Not great. It's slow. It gets really flummoxed if messages start coming in very quickly. And the other thing that is absolutely infuriating is there are 2 options for how you can have a text message delivered to you. One is silently, which means you'll miss it, or B, it can go. It's that annoying. It does that every time.
I'm kind of on board. The thing with trying to replicate CarPlay or Android Auto, to me, if I'm thinking about this critically and trying to diagnose what they could do to do this, they'd have to suck all the data out of the phone and then push it all back into the phone. I'm not clear. I'm assuming that the Bluetooth standard includes enough for that. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But then you're also depending on the car to do the voice recognition and actually text, create voice to text, then push it back through the Bluetooth interface as a text message. That's kind of bummer. I suppose you could then, for the podcast interface, actually have a decent interface, and then, being able to go forward and backward in a podcast. That's really annoying to me, is like if I'm listening to a podcast in our Blazer, because we have a Blazer long-term right now. And it just drives me batshit every day. I just drove it here today, and rather unfortunately, our little aftermarket CarPlay screen, because it was the cheapest one I could find, it has died. And now I'm like, I was trying to see, I kid you not, I've spent the last 3 weeks trying to see if we could live without CarPlay in this thing.
Right.
And even though I only drive it maybe once or twice a week, and everybody else on that side of the wall is driving it more often than I am, they are also going like, what is wrong with this thing? I want CarPlay. So it's not just me, but for me, I think it's the entire experience. The only thing the factory nav system does well now in a Tesla and in a GM vehicle, et cetera, is navigate. The Google built-in stuff navigates great. I mean, it's pretty. It has the satellite stuff and it has the traffic stuff. It's not as good as Waze, though. Like if I want to go home and I want to know where the cops are.
Nothing integrates that.
Let's be honest. That's why we use Waze, right? That's what Waze users use Waze for.
Right.
Um, and some of that is in Apple Maps, some of that is in Google, but Waze is just better at it. And
Yes.
the built-in Waze, GM was like, "Oh, just use the built-in Waze app." That thing sucks bad.
Yeah, I've never tried it on the built-in for
Oh
GM.
my god, it's bad.
Yeah.
And the software updates are ages after they update a phone because there are like millions and millions of these things out there. So you push the update to Waze to your Android devices and your iPhone devices. Okay, that covers like, hundreds of millions of people in the world. And then maybe later you're like, okay, let's push the update to that 10,000 unit thing out there, assuming that they've
Right.
actually kept their Blazer up to date.
Yeah,
But
there's
like,
only 5,000 Escalade IQs, in
I
the
don't know.
world.
When you listen to music in your car, do you stream or do you have like a music library on your phone? How do you do it?
So, for music specifically, I am such a creature of habit. My music is very much locked from like 2 decades, from like 2000 to 2000 and
2000 to 2010's one decade.
correct. Yeah. 2000 to
Just counting.
2000. That is 1 decade. You are correct. It is 1 decade. So I basically have like that
And they say
music.
youngsters can't do math.
They do say that. Yeah, I grew up with calculators, didn't I?
That's what they said
Um,
about my generation as well. And it's true because I can't add.
I have 90s songs on there, so I guess that's my second decade. So I basically have that
But they're
in
on your
like
phone. Like you Apple Music them and
I
they're
have
on there.
Spotify now. I used to
Oh,
have
okay.
Apple Music, now I have Spotify. I liked both. They're both pretty good. I had Tidal for like a little bit with some high fidelity stuff, but then I got the bill at the end of it and it was, so I
So
do
you're
have some downloaded.
mostly streaming?
Some downloaded on some playlists that I
Okay.
really like, so it is downloaded. But I rarely will use the Spotify apps on the GM press
Mm-hmm.
cars. So I'm typically streaming just over Bluetooth on those. So I'm not
Yeah.
using so you don't get all of the controls that you would on CarPlay for
Mm-hmm.
like pause, rewind,
Yeah.
especially because I use Apple Podcasts a lot, which gives you like the 30-second,
Yeah.
forward and whatever.
Exactly.
And GM is really bad about that. They basically just give you next podcast,
Yep. And
rewind,
so
and
and I
terrible
I have
control.
had people in the car go like, "Oh, I want to fast forward." No, don't press the
No,
button.
don't. It's gonna go. Yeah, and you
And it
lose your
goes to the
spot in
next
podcast.
podcast. Yeah, and then you try and go back and it doesn't remember where you were, just like,
Right.
"Oh."
Yeah, they don't have it. If
Yeah.
you listen to your podcasts in Spotify and you're using the Spotify
Mhm.
app, and I feel like if you owned one of these GM electric cars, sans CarPlay, you maybe would have this all figured out and it would be part of your routine.
Mhm.
I'm speaking like Mary Barra now. That this would all
Yeah.
be baked into your routine. But yes, as somebody who switches vehicles every week, it's just
Mhm. Mhm.
inconvenient that
And I
it
will tell
doesn't
you,
just work.
at least from my experience, and I kid you not, I have tried. I really have tried.
Yes.
Yes, I tried.
Yes.
Um, and and it's our own car, so it has our own user profiles in it. I my phone's synced. I have the the Google app, I have the Waze app, I have the this app and the that app, and they're all signed in as me,
Mhm.
and I still hate it.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
and CarPlay's audio is better if you connect via USB or wireless. Both of those are better than Bluetooth. So
Right.
it's infuriating all the way around. And I hope that GM gives up because it sounds like they're going to double down on it instead.
Right. Yeah. And now the gas cars are also going to lose CarPlay. So,
Hmm.
that's a huge issue. It's funny though, I was having this conversation about like by default, what is the best American automaker? And I think you
Mm.
gotta go GM just because of their breadth of products. And I think
Oh,
as
that's an
far
interesting
as
question.
as far as engineering excellence, I think at their highest highs, you gotta credit GM for things like the Blackwing and things like the Escalade and things like I don't think Ford at their highest high and Stellantis at their highest high can achieve what GM can when the bean counters get out of the way. And they don't have the breadth of brands, the breadth of
Yeah.
products that General Motors does globally, even just in America. So I do like to give GM credit where it's
Hmm.
due. They do make horrible mistakes like this from time to time, and they are capable of just just these types of face slapping moments from time to
Let me
time.
think on that. So what, diverging here for a second, what GM product would you buy? Like with your own money, has to be in your budget. Like you were going to
Right.
go out and buy a car. What GM
Oof.
product would you buy right now?
Yeah, the budget thing is interesting because that would rule out obviously like a CT4 V Black,
Hmm.
a
Real people
Corvette.
cars. Let's think
Yeah,
real people cars.
yeah, Corvette Z06 because those would obviously be pretty awesome. Um, that's really interesting. I really like the Chevy Trax and the Buick Envista.
I
I
do
think
like the tracks.
I think
Hmm.
both of them are great little cars, but as far as EVs go, I think I would just take a Cadillac Optic. I have not driven it yet, but the
Mm-hmm.
rear drive version of it sounds really intriguing to me. Just give me all the range. I don't need
Hmm.
that much power. Like I don't need a dual motor EV. I love rear wheel drive EVs. Give me better steering feel. Give me a little bit of, a little bit of slidey slide on the rear axle, and I think that is just a nice size vehicle. The Lyric
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
honestly just a little too big for me. The Optic's a great or honestly, give me an Equinox EV. I'd be
Yeah.
perfectly happy with that.
The CarPlay thing is my problem because
I
we have
know.
a Blazer EV. Its lease is up I guess another like 9 months from now.
Yeah.
And like little tiny bit of me is like, I should just buy it out from the lease,
Yeah.
or maybe I just go find another off lease one that's real cheap because they are pretty damn cheap. But it all for me, honestly, and I kid you not, it keeps coming back to could I live without CarPlay?
Right.
And my answer is I'm too lazy to try for harder. I
Right.
think that's it.
But
I
my
could obviously do it. I mean, I lived without CarPlay for decades of driving, but
my question is, you buy cars, you have
mhm,
long-term cars all the time. If you could go out tomorrow and start fresh with a new car, let's just say, this is for the baby, this is for the channel, this is for the viewers. You have a new car that you think is going to be
mhm.
interesting for the viewers or for yourself. You're going to get a GM vehicle, a Ford vehicle, or a Stellantis vehicle. It has to be on sale right now. Which one are you picking?
Oh,
Because it
I
rules out
might.
things. I know Stellantis has some interesting things that you might honestly want just for like rage bait purpose.
I could honestly, honest to goodness, see myself in a Pacifica plug-in.
But
Um,
that's not new though.
no, or a Grand Cherokee. A Grand
The
Cherokee
new
would
one
work.
that's the refreshed one with
Yeah, the refreshed one.
the
I don't know if
Hurricane.
that's exciting, but I could see myself in a Grand Cherokee. That would work well for me and where I
Okay.
am. The
Yeah.
the Blazer EV honestly would be perfect if it had CarPlay, but the lack
Right.
of it just makes me go like, you know what, this is going to go back and I'm not going to do it again. On the Ford side, there's so many things that are almost there that I'm like, yeah, that could work or that almost right. F-150 is the obvious one in their lineup, but I probably would GMC Sierra first
Yeah.
with the diesel.
Yeah, diesel, because I mean, I just can you really, and this is where I struggle as a journalist, because like, can you really tell somebody to go out and buy a 6.2 truck right now
Hmm.
with the issues that they're having? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I just don't know. You could buy one and it can be perfectly fine.
Hmm.
But could you go buy a Tundra right
Hmm.
now with the issues they're having? Like I just don't know. I had a friend just buy a Ram. He had immediate issues with that. I'm trying to remember what his issue was. Hasn't had any issue. They came and picked him up. It was serviced. He's had
Oh,
no issues since then.
okay.
This is a brand new. He has a Hurricane standard
Oh, the
output
Hurricane. Oh,
engine. And
because
he
now you
hasn't.
could ram with the 5.7.
Right.
5.7's an okay engine.
I don't
Uh,
love it.
it's
I think the
okay.
Hurricane is better in every
Yeah.
measurable way, except for decibels, I suppose.
I wish they had
Back
6 Ford, but we never got the 6.4.
Right. I just wrote an article recently on Car Buzz where a lot of readers were quick to point out that I'm an idiot. But I said if you want the fastest, most fuel efficient, best, and honestly like the cheapest power engine, it's the Hurricane. Like
Yep.
I don't know why, unless you're just Brr, America sound good, that you maybe you as somebody who like actually does truck things, and I'm just
And that's a real specific use case. Like
right.
this is a case of physician heal thyself.
Hmm.
I would probably buy the 5.7 if I had to
Okay.
get a Ram because I live in a mountainous area and we tow up steeper grades and down
Okay.
steeper grades, importantly. And the 5.7 is able to keep some of those heavier loads under control without using the vehicle's brakes. So the engine
Yeah.
braking is decent. There's no small displacement engine in that segment, whether we're talking about the Tundra or the Silverado 2.7 or any of the twin turbo Fords. None of them are able to control a heavier load going downhill, which is why Ford still has the 5 liter in the lineup. So I would
Okay.
probably get a V8. But my parents, who do a lot of towing in Texas, where it is flat as a pancake,
Yeah.
they would be just fine with the Hurricane engine. That's what I would recommend they get. So it's kind of a case of do as I say, not as I do.
Okay. Yeah, that would be very specific. Yeah, because I just did some 0 to 60 runs, and it turns out the 5.7 liter 1500 was slower
Mhm.
than the standard output,
Oh,
the
yeah.
high output, and 6.4, or sorry, the Cummins 2500 that I
Mhm.
tested. So not only was it slower, it's less fuel efficient, it costs more
Mhm.
than the high output in a lot of cases. And yeah, it's all just so that you can get that little badge and get that little sound.
Yep.
So I personally love how I like how the Hurricane sounds, and I
Mhm.
think it's really powerful and smooth, and it's the engine I would get if I were buying the Ram. And I love the Ram for
Yeah.
everything else other than that stupid passenger screen. I think it's basically
Yeah,
worthless.
hit the passenger screen. I will tie this back to our CarPlay thing, though, and say I'm glad that they brought it back because it's about customer choice. And I think
Yeah,
that the right direction for them to have gone was the lineup they have now. This should have been what they did before,
right.
which was, you know, add in the Hurricanes, make the V8 optional, see how many people actually wanted it. Because maybe these people would go in going, I want the V8. They'd test drive the inline six and they'd be like, holy shit, this is what I really want. This
Right.
fits everything that I want in a truck, and then you've sold them. But if you can't get them in the dealer to begin with because you killed it off, then you're
Yeah.
never going to be able to change some portion of shoppers' minds. And then this whole symbol of protest thing, I think, is just the dumbest thing ever because, like, what, you're protesting your own dumb decisions? It's like nobody made you do this.
Yeah,
You,
that is very Ram though, very
yeah,
Stellantis.
you shot yourself in the foot and then got upset at the person that shot you in the foot.
But then everybody keeps coming back at me and going, "Well, look at all the orders they're having." I'm like, "All right, it's great to say there's all this demand now because they took a year
Yeah.
off, but come back to me when you give me the sales split, because the
Mm-hmm.
V8 is not going to suddenly be
No.
50% of Ram sales. It might be 10, but tell me how much the Hurricane is. It can't be that much
I'm
because it's
gonna
not in that many trims. I really
yeah.
just want to see what the sales split on
I'm
engine
gonna
is."
expect, because I think they did answer that. I believe they said that it was going to be about 25% going on. They said that initially it was 40%, but they expected that after, some short period of time that it would plummet down to about 25%, which makes
Okay.
sense because Ford does offer a sales split so often in F-150, and I think that their V8 sales split is now down below 20%. But they've got a
That's
broader
fine.
engine. They've
Yeah,
got
they
a
have
broader
more
engine
engine.
lineup. So I think that Rams will be a little bit higher because there's no hybrid, and there's no lightning. And so to pull off kind of the percentages. So in
Yeah.
Ford's lineup, V8 is on a pretty consistent decline, like year over year. When they first redesigned it and had the twin turbos standard and then the V8 as an option, their take rate was well over like 30-35%, and it's
Yeah.
down below 20% now. So it's definitely dropping. And I think that's why you get that repeat customer in and they're like, I want a Coyote V8. And they're like, really? Have you sampled the forbidden fruit?
Right. And then, yeah, I mean, have you driven a power boost? Like it is
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
way faster than, but then they still do those supercharged trucks. I know those are
Mm-hmm.
rare. Like those are, really interesting, but that'll be interesting. I'm sure Stellantis is working on bringing back the TRX. Like, but the thing about the TRX was, and any journalist that's worth their salt will
Mm-hmm.
tell you the most interesting thing about the TRX was not the engine. It was all the suspension stuff. Like that was the best part about that truck. So I still haven't driven the RHO, but I imagine that the best
Yeah.
part about that is also just how well that truck was balanced and how well it handled and all of that stuff. So I'm sure like, that's the most impressive part to me about that truck specifically, that it handled
Yeah.
really well and it rode really well. And yeah, I imagine it would be really good with the Hurricane engine.
I am I am interested to see what the SRT street truck thing turns out to be because they've said basically that they're not just going to be doing a off-road TRX thing. They have basically said there's going to be some sort of SRT truck,
Yeah.
which surprised me because every time I brought up the possibility of an SRT street truck when TRX first launched and I drove it at the launch event, and I'm like, hey, this is great, but you know, it would be even cooler. Drop this a few inches, body color, fender flares,
Right.
really wide, sticky summer tires. This could be the street truck that nobody else is doing. It is that white space that everybody's always looking for.
Like the SRT10.
Yeah, like the SRT10 was. And that's what they said. They were like, oh, well, the SRT10 was terrible. Nobody liked it. The sales were low, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, this is a different world. Back when SRT10 launched, truck sales were nowhere near where they are today. We didn't have this shift towards the bigger four-door trucks. We also had an SRT10 with a stupid wing in the back, which made the bed a lot less practical because they even commented on that. And I'm like, well, don't stick a wing on it this time then.
Right. And they were all rear wheel drive too, if I'm not mistaken, which really limited their practicality in the snow. And you didn't really have like an all wheel drive system that would have handled that. So like, yeah, now like everything is just so much better. The brakes are going to be better. The suspension is going to be better.
Exactly.
Yeah, everything is going to be so much better on something like that. The thing that I'm not sold on is going to be this Ram. Sorry, I got to get this right. The Ram Rev now, it's no longer the Ram Charger.
Yeah.
It's going to be the Ram Rev. I'm fully out on the idea of not an E-Rev, a Reeve, as Ram is going to be calling it, because you can't have a Ram Rev E-Rev. It has to be a Ram Rev Reeve. Although Reeve is for the Jeep, is the Reeve, but we don't know if Reeve is also going to be the Ram. Gosh, it's amazing for a company that came up with Hellcat also came up with Reeve.
Yeah. Although it's we Googled this one, and there are others that use the REEV terminology.
Who else uses REEV?
Let's look at that one.
Now I'm really curious.
Because see, here we go. Where is this one? Like Lectron calls it a range extended electric vehicle.
Well, Lectron doesn't make cars, so
the California Air Resources Board prefers BevX. So it seems like there are lots of terms, and I'm like, okay, you want to call it that, that's whatever. But can we actually get the thing? Can we finally actually have this thing?
Right. It's been delayed so much, and we know others are coming. There's the Scout. I'm trying to think which other ones are coming. That's like technically an E-Rev.
I'm kind of curious to see if we'll get Volvo's XC70 because that's selling apparently strangely well in China.
Is that a PHEV or is that an E? So the line between what we would call an E-Rev and what China calls a PHEV. So I read a little bit up on the XC70. First of all, it looks more like what we would just call an XC60, because the XC70 that I remember was very like wagon like. This thing, this is
sort of proportionally more like a squashed XC90, and then size wise is slotted between XC60 and 90. So it's longer than XC60 with a lower roofline, more of a wagon like profile. Rides on a completely unrelated platform, of course.
Right. Because it's made so we're not getting this, because this is fully one of those like built and designed with like a Chinese partner.
With China in mind.
Right. Looks like a vault. Like it looks on the outside. You're like, why couldn't they just sell this? But like, no, underneath, it's like totally not the type of like.
It's related to the Polestar 4. So like it.
This is. Okay.
Yeah. So like it could. There's no reason it couldn't come to the US. Supposedly the design is 100% Volvo, but it was a design for that market.
Okay.
Based heavily on bits and bobs from the Geely global portfolio. So they were like, Geely was like, yeah, sure. What parts do you want? And Volvo ran in and was like, we'll take this bit, take that bit, we'll take that bit, and we'll just jam it all together.
Nothing Volvo or Polestar ever does make sense to me, because the things you would think make sense for our market don't come here. The things that do come here don't make sense. Like, I mean, the numbers sound amazing. Like, this is kind of what everybody's been asking for. It goes 124 miles on electric, and then you flick on your gas engine. So it's like, you're never going to be doing more than 124 miles, just like tooting about The
Mhm.
problem with every PHEV is even if it goes 40 miles, like, okay, 20 miles one way, you're coming back, like, that's it. You're going to have to charge it. Like, that's a pain. That's why PHEVs don't really work for me most of the time. And I think for most people, but you tell me 124 miles, but that's on the Chinese.
Mhm.
Temper
But it's like,
expectations on that.
the interesting part, if we go back to the what is an EREV and a blah blah blah. Apparently, the only definition that I have ever been able to find is the one by the California Air Resources Board, and this goes
Mhm.
way back to some of California's initial zero emissions push legislation back in 2012. And here's the key: vehicle must have an all electric range of at least 75 miles, higher than that required of a zero emissions vehicle for classification in California, which is 50 miles.
Mhm.
The power output unit, auxiliary power output unit, must provide less range than the battery range. The APU must not be capable of switching on until the battery charge has been depleted, and then the vehicle must meet super ultra low emissions requirements. The key here, though, is that they don't care whether the auxiliary power unit powers the wheels mechanically or electrically. That's up to the manufacturers. Doesn't matter how you do it. Doesn't have to be a
Okay.
serial. Could be a parallel. But the
Okay.
key here is the range required, and that the gasoline range must be less than the electric range. So
Yeah.
so nothing actually that we're seeing on the horizon
Is going to
qualifies
be,
as an extended range electric vehicle by the only definition that really is out there so
yeah.
far. Like, because the Rams, it's like a lot of range, but then like 500 miles on gasoline. So they'd have to shrink the tank way down to qualify under this. And this was such a weird piece of legislation because it was definitely a legislative gimme to the car industry. The origin story of this is, if you met these requirements, then your vehicle that had a gasoline engine on board, like the i3, if you remember
Right.
that one,
Mhm.
then your i3 would actually count as a full electric vehicle. So credit wise, for California's credit scheme, it would count as if it was a zero emissions vehicle and did not have an engine at all,
Right.
even though it did.
That's why it had to have such a small gas tank. It had to be
Right.
very limited in how
Hmm.
far. And so I wonder, is there a way that you can modify an i3 to just have a bigger gas tank?
There is. You can actually program it,
Mm.
because apparently what they did in the US was the American version, because of California's legislation, just had a software program difference on the gas tank. And so it
Mm.
actually did have the same size gas tank as Europe, and you can reprogram it to access the extra like gallon and a half or something that's in there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because
So
I've heard used i3s are honestly great little things. Maybe out of warranty, they're a little
they're adorable.
scary to own, but yeah, no, I heard they drove great. You were getting
Hmm.
this like carbon fiber little hatchback for like a,
Hmm.
when they were new, they were decently expensive, but now they're great. That's what I love is the idea of this like really, really small car that could go really
Hmm.
far, but like the idea of carrying around this 100 kilowatt hour battery pack, which is as
Yeah.
big as a Tesla. And then you also have a 3.6 liter V6 gasoline engine. So you have all the complexity of having to
Hmm.
do oil changes and maintain two different cylinder heads and all of the different maintenance that you're going to have to do on a gasoline engine, all of that. So all of the added complexity of that.
Here's my question though. I getcha, but is it? I think it's still lighter than than a Chevy Silverado EV.
EV, maybe like I don't know. So weight, maybe, and like
Yeah.
I guess like your fuel stops are better, but complexity is higher.
Complexities, yeah, complexity is a problem. But
Cost of ownership will be higher because
mhm,
you're basically now. So like,
yeah,
so what is the advantage over a diesel Silverado?
I guess logically the advantage would be the customer wants to drive something that's quick. So they want that electric vehicle feel,
Okay.
theoretically,
Yeah,
brain.
yeah, yeah,
The
yeah,
marketing brain would be like, we market this as the EV that you don't have to worry about. So you could drive it like a Ford Lightning and it's
yeah,
fast. Not it's
yeah.
not gonna be Rivian fast, but I think it's supposed to be faster than Lightning. So,
Four and a half seconds probably to
yeah.
something like that is my
Like
guess.
performance-wise, pretty in line with the GM trucks, I think,
Yeah,
as I recall.
yeah.
But then you could charge it every day if you want to, but then you don't have to worry about that camping trip or that towing excursion, whatever. But you have to be willing to pay the fact that there is going to be some sort of non-zero extra maintenance on this engine. It's not going to run a lot, so your oil changes are probably going to be like every year to every 2 years rather than every 10,000 miles. But it's still going to have to happen, right? You're still going to have to change the oil now and then. There's still going to be other things that will have to be worked on. And logically, there's more going on in there than just a regular battery truck. But I don't know how many customers are in that window where they're like, I want to tiptoe into electrification.
It's so specific.
It
And
seems like people are so polarized right now.
And we just talked about this in terms of like how people feel about Stellantis as a company and complexity. They brought back an inferior engine. And I know there's like some very specific use cases in terms of engine braking downhill. They brought back an inferior engine because people are saying, well, turbochargers are just another thing to fix. People don't trust turbos yet. So they're going to trust the same company to say, well, I want a battery and then an engine that's going to be there, but also but then also run less frequently. So you're saying, oh, it's going to need oil changes, but oh, it's not going to run that much. Okay, so now it has a gas engine, but it's only going to fire up. So you know what engines are really good at? Only running, but sometimes that's really good for a gasoline engine. Especially
I'm assuming it's going to be like the minivan, not Pacifica.
Yes,
have my brain right here because the Pacifica, it runs its engine now and then just to make sure it's all okay. I will say, in Ram's defense, Pacifica plug-in hybrid has been relatively good. They had some earlier electrical issues with the transaxle control unit. And then they have had some battery issues, but those weren't Stellantis' fault. That was LG Chem and their other suppliers, right? Like every other car company out there's had some battery tussles. Even Tesla, has had issues with some of the Panasonic cells. Now they make them themselves, and it's their problem, right? But at least Chrysler could point the finger somewhere else. So it's like on that front, I'm kind of okay with it. The logic is just more what kind of gets me. Like, what limited use case is this where you can can convince someone to get it? Or are you doing the opposite of what would be quote unquote good for the environment, which is maybe convincing someone that was considering a full electric truck like a Silverado to actually take a city step back and get one of these? Maybe that's the market segment for this vehicle. I just don't know how many people that are anti-EV that this is going to fix. I will say, oddly enough, my dad wants one, and that shocked me. I did not understand why. And his thing is just that electricity in Texas is super duper crazy cheap. And he's like, I still need to be able to tow, and I want to be able to have that freedom. But he's like, yeah, sure, I'll just use electricity. I don't care that it's generated by coal in my area. It's literally a coal and an oil fired power plant not that far from them. But he's like, I don't care where the energy comes from. Who gives a shit? It's just cheap.
It is definitely not for the same person who's buying an electric truck now, I would say, that cares about getting rid of their carbon footprint. Because when this thing does fire up, that 3.6 liter V6 gasoline engine, it's getting like 19 miles to the gallon. Like it is not running in series efficiently. Like it is basically like, it's very inefficient when it's running like that. And I got to imagine the Scout is going to be the same. Like, I don't think I don't know what engine they've picked for that. If it's going to be an EA 888 or what have you. Scout really has not said much about that vehicle at all. But I'm starting to not get that excited about it. I want just the electric. The electric does everything you need it to do. And if unless you are just really taking all these road trips all the time, just rent the truck for the 1 week a year you're going to be doing this, or just get the diesel. The diesel's going to just do it better. You're going to get better gas mileage towing with the diesel than you are with this E-Rev thing. I love towing with an EV for the short distances that I always do it on a press drive or whatever. It's so easy. It's smooth. I love one pedal driving with towing. It's great. So I guess, but it's a luxury item. Nobody that I know has 90 grand to go buy a brand new truck. I don't know.
Therein lies the problem.
Yeah. I don't know who these people are. Is this the middle America farmer that I just haven't met? These really rich Idaho farmers.
Yeah, and without the tax incentive scheme, which
Right,
could have been a logical reason to go down this road, and I'm sure that at some point that was part of Ram's calculus.
right.
But without the tax incentive scheme, it's a little bit, the math is a little bit harder. But you know, this brings me along to Honda's new hybrids, because you know, Honda's hybrids, when you really think about them, how are they not an extended range electric vehicle in a way? Because all they're missing is a plug. Literally, by the way that most people want to call extended range electric vehicles,
Mhm,
right? They want to have the separate category for a serial hybrid that has an engine that just acts like a battery.
mhm.
Then that is exactly what an Accord hybrid is, a Civic hybrid is, the new
And
Prelude
the new
hybrid is,
Prelude,
etc.
yeah. The best thing I ever did was I made a video on the Prelude, and I'm sure I don't know if you had to deal with this. All the comments were, "Ugh, I can't believe the new Prelude is this CVT." I said, "Aha! It's not a CVT. It doesn't have a transmission. Joke's
Yep.
on you."
Yep, it has a single speed gear set. And
Correct.
that's the funny part, is it's like it's an EV, only the battery is a gasoline engine, because it has a teeny
Right,
tiny little battery, and for everything else it has to suck power from the engine. Um, but they're going to have a new whole set of hybrids, and it appears that
right.
they haven't given us all the details yet, so this is just, some of this is speculation. But
Mhm,
they have said that they're going to be generating a new generation of hybrids. It's going to support 4-cylinder engines, 6-cylinder engines.
mhm.
It's gonna have new motors, new batteries, but fundamentally be basically the same design as their current series hybrid. But it's gonna have an e-axle in the back, like Toyota.
Right. So that should support things, because there's never been a pilot
Mm-hmm.
hybrid, at least to my knowledge, they've never done, or a passport hybrid. So,
Mm-hmm.
Toyota has just been eating their lunch on these
Mm-hmm.
bigger hybrids. CRV hybrid competes just fine. So does Civic hybrid. We love Civic hybrid. In fact, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's better than Corolla hybrid in a lot of
Oh yeah.
ways. It's maybe
Just
not
not when it comes to fuel economy.
not in terms of fuel economy, but in terms of power and,
Oh,
in
everything
terms of how
else.
how it drives, it's lovely. The Corolla hybrid's kind of tinny. Um, but Toyota has a Highlander hybrid and a Grand Highlander hybrid, and they even have a Sequoia hybrid, and and Honda doesn't
Mm-hmm.
even have a Sequoia sized vehicle. So this
Mm-hmm.
could open them up to new markets that they've never had. But
Mm-hmm.
my boss actually was just in Japan. He drove the new Prelude. He said it was really great. I don't know with the price point. Have they revealed the price point, or is that still under embargo?
I don't think they have officially said
Okay,
yet,
let's
but
tight lip on that.
I honestly haven't looked. I'm sure maybe I have it somewhere squirreled
I think
away,
it
but
might still be under embargo, so tight lip on that
yeah.
still. But
But all the expectations were that it was gonna be over 40,000. They said
over
it was gonna
forty
be
thousand
more than the
dollars,
SI. So a lot of worries have been, if you translate the Japanese price tag down, it's like almost $50,000.
almost 50,
So
like Type R pricing, which will put it.
yeah. So where in
We'll
this,
say.
that's a big window, 10 grand, but like, uh,
But, if you take the Pilot, which I think we both agree is a really nice vehicle with a really small touchscreen,
mhm,
but if you, maybe put the touchscreen that's in the Accord into it, and you now up the fuel economy to
could we get a
closer to
bigger LCD cluster? Because the little cluster seems a little small to me too. Like,
that too.
Honda loves the 10-inch thing with the little LEDs on the side.
Mhm.
And now we've got like a Nissan Leaf and a Nissan Sentra with like ginormous screens, a little
Doable
small.
seems
Yeah.
doable for Honda. The thing that my mind goes into, interestingly though, is a V6 with a I know it's not a CVT, but the feeling of a
Mhm.
CVT, we
Mhm.
could call it an eCVT. I don't know how you feel about the terminology eCVT. I
I hate
personally
it. I
I
I
hate
think
it too. I hate it
I
too.
think it confuses people. So
Same.
I wish they
Hate
would
it.
just pick a new name for that. Just find something new rather than trying to jam it into terminology that
Right.
existed now. I think it would have made more sense, but I think that ship's
How
also
should we
sailed. So,
proceed on this I'll proceed however you want to, because I
eh,
don't like
I
we'll
think,
say ECVT,
yeah.
but everybody listening, just know that Alex and I hate the term ECVT. We're gonna continue because that's what automakers
Mhm.
call it. But just know we object to the term existing. But we
And they
are gonna
changed their
call it.
minds, because Toyota used to do that, and now lately they've been trying to shy away from it, and some documents still say ECVT
I
and some
know.
don't, and I'm
Some
just
say
like,
planetary gear set. We're
"Ugh."
gonna use the correct pronouns for this,
Yes.
unfortunately. So my thing with and I'm sure you've driven the TX
Mhm,
PHEV, the
mhm, mhm.
TX 550
That's
plus.
moi.
Oh, you like
fantastic.
that one? I
I
don't like that one.
it's relatively quick. The fuel economy is good. I don't know if it
Yeah,
belongs in a TX, but like the system, I like. I like the system. I
I
think
like the system. I just don't think it sounds it sounds rough when it like moves versus the
oh
four-cylinder ones, which are very quiet. So
yeah, there's more sound. Yeah.
if you drive an RX plug-in, this thing is smooth. You can
Hmm.
barely tell when the engine's on because it's a four-cylinder. It's very
Yeah.
muted. It almost feels like an electric car most of the time. But then when you drive this TX, it's a V6. It's very noticeable when this thing kicks on.
Yeah.
Under load,
I
it's
think they wanted it to sound like that. I think that because it's not some of Lexus's V6s related to that V6, mind you, like some of the other non-Atkinson cycle V6s were pretty quiet. So I'm guessing that was deliberate.
maybe it was jarring to me having driven other Toyota and
Mm,
Lexus PHEV systems. I was not expecting it, and I was just like a little put off by it. And I just like other TXs better. Like I like the
mm.
TX 500 better. I like
Ooh,
the
I don't like
power
that one.
delivery of having the gears rather than
Mm,
having a V6 that picks 1 RPM and goes in.
mm,
So I wonder if the consumers that love Honda's J Series V6 are going to also love it when it's doing this kind of CVT thing where it's just
mhm,
picking a
mhm.
gear. That's just I don't know
I
if
mean,
consumers are going to like it or not.
Honda's decided that they need to imitate a stepped automatic now, so they try to do
Okay.
that whole thing. And they did say that the E-step, whatever, blah 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 plus thing that the Prelude's going to get is going to happen on these V6 ones as well. So,
Okay. So I haven't
like,
driven
I
Prelude.
don't know.
Very few people have driven. We'll drive it in January. So we'll see how new Prelude drives.
And
So
maybe
we'll
that's the
see.
thing. So if you could do a Honda Pilot and say that V6 was like the quietest thing you've ever been in. They spared no expense, jammed all the foam they could find between the engine and the passenger compartment. Would you mind that it felt kind of, EV like, CVT like, whatever we want to call that feel, as long as you couldn't hear the engine?
No, I think I'd actually prefer gears. I think I'd prefer it mimic because the
Hmm.
Toyota one
So you
does
want an
not
Ionic
do that.
5N. You want a 5N with the fake gear shift.
Yeah, I want it to fool me because I like the sound of a Honda
Hmm.
J series. I
Hmm.
think they do sound really
Hmm.
good. I think I just maybe didn't love how that Toyota
Hmm.
engine was sounding pinning 1 RPM. I think that's the problem. And I don't mind it as much when it's only a four-cylinder and it's quiet. So
Hmm.
I think maybe this Honda has the potential to be really good. A, if it sounds as good as their current J series. B, if it mimics gears. Because not all V6s sound good. I think
Hmm.
Honda's J
Hmm.
series does. I remember driving the Atlas a couple years ago. They sent me, I believe it was a
That's okay.
Cross Sport, and that had the VR6 engine, which used to be one of the best sounding V6 engines that you could get. And for whatever reason in the Atlas, it sounded horrible. Whatever they did to it
Mm.
by the end, it sounded so bad. So these engines can either just sound good by the end, they can sound bad. So I'm kind of excited to see what Honda can do with that. But I've been told, this is coming down from Honda, from somebody at Honda through my boss, that like their hybrid and EV plan, we know ZDX was canceled after a
Yep.
model year. The whole everything that's been going on in our country, with the way that the tax credits went away, Honda's plans have definitely taken a hit. They're
Yes.
not as they were supposed to be. Let's just say that.
Yep. And unfortunately, as sometimes I have to remind our audience, Honda seems to the American eye, Honda seems like a big company, but they're in fact really quite small.
Compared to
Almost
Toyota,
right. Well, compared to a lot of companies, because
right?
I mean, they're considerably smaller in global sales than and global footprint, I should say, than Nissan, for instance. So when you look
Yeah,
at Honda sales, their biggest market's North America. Then really their biggest market is Japan. Europe is very small for Honda. China's decent, but most of the things that Honda sells in China are not Hondas. They're this joint venture thing where they borrowed a Chinese manufacturer's platform, stick a Honda badge on it, some little Honda this and that. There's not a lot of Honda going on in the Chinese Honda. So
yeah.
I personally have to discount at least 75% of their Chinese sales for that. I would go below half, even though it's a joint venture, half owned by
Yeah.
Honda, half owned by their partner. I would have to discount it further than that.
Yeah.
Honda doesn't really sell a lot in the Middle East. Their European portfolio is quite small, etc.
They have
So
no body on
yeah,
frame vehicles in any market. So that's
right.
a huge portion.
And that's why it's important for Honda to make things as uniform as possible, sharing as much as possible on common platforms, etc. That's why it's very sensible their business model, and they don't like making things that are unprofitable. So I am curious to see how this goes with them. It was probably the right decision to kill off Prologue and ZDX, as sad as I think that is.
Yeah.
Because were they losing money on it? Probably. And then if reading the tea leaves, if you don't need it as a loss leader, then why have it? Let's not have any losses. So
cut, amputate
yeah.
the leg now.
Yeah.
Basically.
Good business decisions are sometimes sad decisions, right? That's unfortunate.
GM built an entirely new engine, the Blackwing engine, and killed it off after one car. Just nuts.
No, I am intrigued because you're going to soon be heading over to Los Angeles to the auto show, and you're going to be driving a bunch of different Volvos. So I'm going to be curious when you get back to see what you think of the Hybrid Max system that's in the Grand Highlander and the Crown and the RX and the TX and the whatever X.
Yep.
And how that compares with Volvo's plug-in hybrid system, because the conceptual design is very, very similar.
Yeah.
But Volvo's had a decade plus to refine it.
Right.
And not to color your opinion, but to me, the Lexus system comes across as quite unrefined in comparison. Even though interestingly, Volvo's using a Toyota transmission essentially, because Aisin is controlled by Toyota basically, and that's what they use. But they use an 8-speed, and pretty much everybody else in that automatic transmission hybrid thing for transaxles, they've gone 6-speed, which does surprise me now and then.
Yeah, Hyundai and Kia use 6-speed. I guess BMW uses ZF 8-speeds in their plug-in hybrids. I mean, I've driven Volvo PHEVs. It's been a while, and I haven't driven any of their brand new.
Yeah, it's a facelift.
And they just kind of redid like the light, everything within the same parameters of the car.
This is just the third. Is it the third or the fourth refresh? Volvo refreshes are weird because since this generation launched of the plug-in hybrid, they've had four different batteries, 2 different engines, 2 different transmissions, 2 different rear motors, like range increases up the wazoo.
And then they're updating it again with 800 volt because they launched it with 400 volt.
That's EX90. This is XC90.
Oh, right. XC90. But now.
But actually, EX90, that makes a lot of sense to me though, because it, as dumbfounding as it is to launch a brand new car and then the next year go, you know what, we're going to toss new motors and new batteries in that thing. Crazy. As dumbfounding as that is, it is so very Volvo.
Right.
Because that's what they do so often.
Well, but we've talked about this with why is Polestar? That's just my question. Why is because Geely, you have Geely, which I'm sure your viewers are very aware of Geely as an entity. They have a car that has over 1,200 horsepower. It's badged as a Geely, and it's got crazy motors and whatever. And then they launched this Polestar 5, the halo for their performance brand, and it has 830 horsepower. I'm like, what do you mean? You have this car that has 1,200 horsepower. So why are you releasing a car in 2025 that does 0 to 60 in 3.1 seconds? I'm like, that would have been impressive in 2017 when the Tesla P90D was a thing. Why are we still impressed with? I'm like, I don't even understand why. And first of all, the Polestar 5 is probably not coming to America. Even if it did, it'd probably be 150 grand after tariffs. It charges like decently fast, but not like anything like range, not like impressive. Like, I just don't understand. Like, if you're not coming out with an EV that is class leading, why are you even bothering to exist anymore? And you have class leading stuff that exists in China, but why can't you just put that battery, that motor, that charging tech in anything that we're getting here? Do you think we're stupid, or do you just think like we just don't know that this stuff exists?
That is such an interesting question. And I think that some of this is just the way that Polestar is structured, because They pulled Polestar out of Volvo, but it's operating more like a traditional car company. And the Chinese car companies operate very differently than the Japanese or Koreans or Americans or European car companies. They tend to not create clay models. Most car companies do the same thing, right? They start with the concept and then they do some drawings and then they do these clay models, a whole lot of clay models, and then they want to surface it and this and that. And then they make prototypes, and then they make pre-production prototypes and engineering mules and all that jazz. And a lot of Chinese car companies are like, let's just do that in CAD and we'll shortcut all this process. We'll build the thing. And then if people don't like it, you throw it away and do another one because the design and development cycles are so much shorter there. But the Chinese market does end up, and I think you end up in two different places. You end up with like wasted things in China because there are a lot of models that don't live very long because the manufacturers like that didn't work. Let's do another one. So you do end up kind of blowing through there. So I'm wondering, and I don't know the answer to this necessarily, but if they had done design in a more traditional process, they wouldn't have had as much waste. They would have had longer lifetimes, and maybe it wouldn't really have cost you anymore. But then they can't be as nimble, and maybe the customer actually gets a better product because they got to choose of this smorgasbord what they really wanted, and that helps inform, design directions in the future. But on the Polestar thing, what is peculiar is that they announce products like a traditional car company does, and then
years in it, like this Polestar 5 was
but we don't really know.
Years away.
And here's my suspicion is we don't really know if that's what we're gonna get. Because Polestar 3 was launched and the charging's okay. For the North American market, Polestar 3's charging is very competitive. Like it's actually totally fine.
It's like 250 kilowatts. It's like pretty good.
Yeah, it's like 220, something like that. Somewhere in there. But it's charge time's very Tesla-like. And Tesla's the elephant in the room. So as long as you hit the Tesla bar, I think you're pretty good in this market, right?
Yeah.
But then also at the same time, they were sitting on a brand new 800-volt architecture with new motors and new batteries that's going to charge even faster. And like, well, hang on.
Why didn't we get that?
Why didn't we start there? And then there were some rumors that, well, maybe that was delayed. So then you're like, well, if that was delayed, then why did we make two of these things? Like this whole, that makes no sense.
And then why doesn't the 4? Okay, it was delayed.
Yeah.
The 4 should have it.
Yeah.
Why is that launching without it?
And also, hang on, guys. Like if we had the 400-volt one and the 800-volt one, and this one is so much better, all that jazz, right? Then why don't you have both? Like maybe that's the cheaper one and this one's the more expensive one. No, they're just going to jam the whole thing in the new one. So and a part of me expects that we are going to get a 5, but that the 5 will probably be more Geely bits, etc. And maybe we'll do that because that's the claim with XC60. So Volvo's claim with the XC60, which we should be seeing in January fully, like full on details. Sorry, EX60, yeah. Their claim with that one is that it will be the next generation of Volvo's SPA platform. So SPA 3, SPA 2 didn't live very long.
Yeah.
But this next generation SPA platform will be more EV dedicated, and it will start having some synergies with Geely for procurement and battery tech and this and that to help lower costs and be more agile. I will say though, in Volvo's defense, not exactly Volvo's defense, but just sort of an explanation. I had honestly expected our EX30, which we've had for now 10 months, I had expected its software to remain very static. But in reality, their software updates have been paced pretty nicely, and I would say they're not quite Tesla, but they're not far off of Rivian as far as adding features and changing things based on customer demand, which I did not expect. I just expected that software was just going to suck bad the whole time. But they gave us CarPlay when they said they would. It now has access to the Tesla network. It gets, different drive modes than before. It has better range than it had before. It has easier access to performance, the automatic windshield wipers and auto high beams, which it did not launch with, all of a sudden work now. So part of me was like, those features are never going to come. But they actually kind of came. So I'm okay with that. And even one of our employees, C40s, has received continual updates. So I'm kind of like, now he can see how dead his battery is or is not. I think his battery health is 98%, 97%, something like that after, I want to say 5 years and 60,000 miles. So it's not bad.
That's really good. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah.
But now they have a screen on there to tell you that, and they didn't before. Apparently, in that generation, they will also sell you adaptive cruise control over-the-air update for like $400 if you didn't get it from the factory,
Not bad.
because they have all the hardware on board. It just wasn't turned on. So
Okay.
I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I can kind of see this, but then that kind of goes back to like what the Polestar for. I don't know. It seems like it was a dealer network thing, because
Yeah.
the model for Polestar, which has since gone to pot in America, to be frank. Sorry for everybody watching from Polestar. I think the original model made a lot of sense. They were like, we're going to only sell in major metro areas. We're not going to care about places in the country that don't buy EVs. We're going to be in these areas, a tech focused brand in the tech focused areas, yada, yada, yada. The thought process was to create a brand that bought cars differently. So they still have a dealer network. You're still actually transacting with the dealer, but or Polestar has more control over the process because of how this thing works. So you go into the Polestar space, it's this, Hollywood Boulevard kind of thing where you can see the car, you can test drive the car, but you can't roll out with a car right then. You were supposed to then order a car with your consultant, and then they would find one from port inventory and then ship it to the dealer and to you in a short time. So rather than a typical manufacturer lead time, you'd pick from the 5,000 or 6,000 whatever at the port, and they would get it to you, and you would have your car within a week. So pretty short lead time. But then the dealers wanted dealer inventory because Americans do expect to be able to roll out with a car. So now they've kind of gone from this low cost dealer promise, so where the dealer principal's not putting up as much cash because they have the trendy store, but they don't have any inventory, to now the dealer actually has inventory. So it's my understanding, because they still can't control pricing. So it's still not fixed pricing. There's still some ability to haggle, probably minor. But as I understand it, there was less ability to haggle when they were pulling from port stock before. And now that there's inventory, now the dealer has more flexibility.
It's like streaming, where we've gone back to cable. It's like the same thing that Polestar, they're like, we've reinvented the dealer, we're back to dealer.
Yeah.
They've gone full circle.
And then it's kind of coupled with like better service and this and that, because they pick up and deliver your car, because they don't want you to see that your car is being serviced at a Volvo dealer.
Yeah.
So you cannot have a Polestar franchise if you don't already have a Volvo franchise.
We have a mutual friend who owned one, and he said the experience was not all roses and sunshine with it, but that didn't stop him from buying a second one. So
I am surprised about that.
He's willing to give them another shot. So
might also be the youngest Polestar 3 owner.
Could be for sure.
I honestly would not mind a Polestar 3. That has run through my brain that maybe when the Blazer EV's lease is over, maybe Polestar 3 is the right answer, because it was designed in theory to be the electric Porsche Cayenne competitor. It's not going to be there, obviously. We will see the Porsche Cayenne electric though on the 19th, and I can't talk too much about it because I've already seen it, but a lot of it's already public. Like, it's going to be bonkers fast, charge really fast, all that jazz. You can even see some of the interior already, because Porsche's released all manner of things. I don't know why it's a secret, because we've already seen almost all of it. It is probably going to charge faster than the new 800-volt Polestar as well. But, it's probably going to be a lot more expensive. So I'm kind of okay with that. Polestar, as a startup brand, they want to be that Porsche competitor where 5 makes sense. Because Polestar's not, or Porsche's not doing, 2,000 horsepower, 3,000 horsepower like some of these brands there will try and do. So I think the competition's okay, but they just don't have any brand equity in this. So it's
their SEO, their search value is nothing. Like, my fiance always makes fun of them. It's like, why is it called Polestar? Like, that sounds like a terrible name. I personally, I think, and I can't tell you,
it sounds better in Swedish. Let's put it that way.
Okay. That may well be. I think I owe it to you, and I owe it to the audience, to tell you as much as I can about the BMW iX3. I just drove it in Spain, and I can't tell you about how it drives. Driving impressions are embargoed until December 3rd, I want to say. Okay. So go on carbuzz.com to read my full review of the BMW iX3 when it goes live. And unfortunately, I don't know how you're planning your long-termers in terms of when you're planning to buy your next one. This car will not be on sale in the United States until summer of 2026.
Quite a ways.
So it's a while away. So Europe is
Mhm.
going to get it first. It's going to be built in plant Dingolfing in Germany. Yeah, that's where it is. So, no tax credits involved. Like,
Yeah.
it's not built in South Carolina.
Just some
Um,
tariffs.
right, just some tariffs. This car, and again, I am not telling you how the BMW iX3 drives. I am only telling you stuff that is readily available based on press releases and things that are available currently, and things that you can touch and feel if you were to go sit in one right now. This car is going to, we don't have full pricing yet. So it's going to launch in dual motor variant. It's going to
Mhm.
have a 108 kilowatt hour battery, other
Okay.
versions to
Okay.
follow. So there's going to be a rear model version. I believe that one will probably have a smaller battery. So
Mhm.
I just don't think they need the 108 kilowatt hour battery when paired with rear drive. So 400 miles EPA range is what they're targeting for
Wow.
the 50 version with dual motors. So
Wow.
theoretically, the rear drive version might be close, but it might have a smaller battery, so it might be slightly lower than that. It could be 350, it could be 380. Don't know. This is all me speculating. That is a
Hmm.
number that everybody says that's what I want from
But
my EV.
how is the interior? Is it roomy enough to really be an X3 alternative?
Yeah, it's bigger inside than a gas X3
Hmm.
because they
Mhm.
pushed out the wheelbase. So it has a bigger wheelbase, but the same kind of footprint as an
Mhm.
X3. So less overhang, more wheelbase than a gas X3. So it fills the space of an
Hmm.
X3, but the interior is voluminous. The back
Hmm.
seat, there's no bump, there's no nothing. So you sit in that back seat, you have room for days behind. I don't really have a lot of like EPA interior
Hmm.
measurements
Mhm.
on it, but I can just tell you, having sat in it, tons of space.
Does the
If
cargo
your
area feel as big?
cargo area does feel as big, there's a very small frunk for the
Oh.
first time. It's not huge, it's big enough for a charging cable, which is really
Mhm.
nice. But yeah, the trunk area is at least as big. I think it's maybe a tad smaller than gas X3, but I think if you combine it with the frunk, it's like almost
Mm.
identical if you go by like EPA specs. I'd have to
Okay.
pull up my articles, but it's like very, very close. And unless you're like sitting there with like a ruler, you're not going to
Is
notice that.
BMW doing J3400 or are they still on CCS?
It is going to have NACS.
Okay.
Now the problem is it is going to be on the passenger rear side when it arrives. So if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, that's going to be wrong
No,
for a test
passengers.
report.
Yeah, that is wrong, right?
Yeah, passenger rear, because
Yes.
because BMW, for all their gas cars, the gas cap is
Yeah.
always on the passenger side, so that when you pull
Yeah.
over and put gas in, you're not
Yeah.
sideswiped on the side of the road.
Mhm.
And for whatever reason, I know you're not really going to fill your EV with
Yeah.
electricity on the side of the road, but
Although
it's like
if we do see the rise of curbside charging, which has long been promised, that could be easier. I know that was really handy across Europe where you've got the little bullards and on the sidewalk and
mhm,
you can just plug in. Those are definitely handy. Also,
mhm,
Tesla keeps promising longer cords and they're slowly dripping out. So
sure.
around
So,
here, most of the stations close to the office, I should say. Most of the stations actually are the new V4 pedestal. They aren't V4 fully
but
stations.
yeah, the box, the
Yeah.
internal is not.
But they do have the longer cable.
So,
That does
so
make it easier.
So maybe, but a lot of the Tesla stations, you are going to be blocking two spots. Kind of annoying, but not
Is
the
it an
only EV.
800-volt EV though?
It is an 800-volt EV.
So you're probably
It
not gonna wanna go to a Tesla station anyway.
exactly. Now here's the thing: this vehicle can charge at 400 kilowatts peak
Mhm.
speed. So if you, I I have never seen one of those in the United States. I don't.
Mercedes has some in Georgia.
Mercedes. Okay,
Yeah,
so
and
maybe you have one.
ChargePoint has some 500 kilowatt ones here and there.
Okay, so I don't know where I would find one. Maybe local, your
Mhm.
viewers know where they are. But if you have one of those, you can add 175 miles of range in 10 minutes of charging on this
Wow.
EV. You can go with a 108 kilowatt hour battery, which is not a small
Mhm.
battery. You can go from 10 to 80 in 21 minutes. So that is Ionic 5 time for a 108 kilowatt hour battery. And Ionic 5 is what, 80, 78 kilowatt hours. So that's an
Mm-hmm.
extra 20 kilowatt hours in the same amount of time. That's how fast this darn thing charges. So it is really, this thing is class leading in almost everything. And I know there are other EVs. People just aren't getting it when I'm telling them these specs. They go,
Yeah.
well, there's the Lucid Air that goes
Yeah.
500 and the Air Pure goes 400 and the Silverado, whatever. There's other EVs that go 400 miles. This EV, the first one they're launching is the 50 dual motor. It's 463 horsepower. They're saying 0 to 60 in, I think they say 4.7. So it's not the fastest in the world, but it's quick enough.
That's good range though, and the good charging time. It's interesting because that's the same charging speed that Porsche has announced publicly on the upcoming Cayenne electric, 400
Right.
kilowatts. They're saying 10% to 80% in about 15 minutes, so really quick. What
Right.
is interesting? Did BMW give you a spec for how fast it could charge on a 400 volt station?
They
Porsche
did not.
did.
Yeah, they did not give us a time on that. I'm interested to see. Kyle Connor was there from Out of Spec. I believe he did a range test with it on a Tesla station, but I don't know. You know, that's just like one test. So like, I don't know what his times were on that, but he did say that when it had to run split pack, if you've ever tested a GM Ultium car, you can hear the clunk when it goes split pack. This thing, dead silent. Didn't even hear it. Didn't even hear it switch over to 400 volt. So that was interesting. And then the thing that I think people aren't,
I guess the question would be, so is it actually splitting the pack or is it using a voltage converter?
I'd have to talk to the engineers about that, but whatever it's doing it in some way that's different than GM is doing it. But this car, the 50 version, is going to start, they're saying, in the low $60,000 range. So this is not an $80,000 to $100,000 EV. This is a, and listen, all cars are really expensive now. This is a reasonably affordable Cadillac Lyric / Optic-y, and there's a cheaper one coming. There's a rear-wheel drive version below that coming. This is going to be a game changer and I haven't even talked about how it drives yet, but just based on the specs of it.
Now, I am curious because, of course, by all of Volvo's commentary around EX60, it sounds like they're planning on that being even more affordable.
We'll see.
Which brings me along to the question we should probably end with, which is, does Jeep have too many EVs? Is too many EVs? Is one Jeep too many EVs for Jeep? Because the Grand Wagoneer S, wow, it's pricey. And with the Grand Wagoneer S around 70 grand, I'm going to go ahead and guess that the upcoming Recon not going to be a whole lot cheaper than maybe it's going to be a little cheaper, but it's not going to be a lot cheaper somehow, I don't think.
Right. Well, technically, if you want to count the Wagoneer Re-Eve as an EV, they might have 3 EVs in their lineup. So yeah, the Recon, I honestly, if you would have told me when they canceled, what EV did they just cancel? The Banshee. They canceled the Banshee. I would have bet $1 million that the Recon was going to be canceled too. Because if you can't get the Dodge customers to say, I want this like crazy fast EV thing, what Jeep customers going like, I want my Wrangler to be all electric?
I wonder if it's Europe. Because, of course, they get Jeeps that we don't get in Europe.
Yeah, they get the Avenger, right?
In hybrid.
I saw a bunch of them in Europe. I was just there. It's a great looking little crossover.
And they get an electric one and a hybrid one and a gas one, so a whole bunch of different ones. But that kind of makes me wonder, like, is it really for us? Like, we may be getting it first, but it does make sense for Europe. Like, if there's going to be this, which there already is, there's this push towards all electric vehicles in all those markets, right? So if you want to compete in those markets, you need one. And the company car push for tax credits, since over 60% of cars are company cars in Europe, new car sales, it kind of makes sense there. I'm just like, in America, maybe the Recon makes sense for the Jeep brand, but like, then why on earth do we have a Wagoneer S? Like, why couldn't we just call that a Chrysler and stick it over there?
I got to imagine that it's going to be kind of like the Hummer is for GMC. It's just going to be this halo model that most people aren't even aware exists. Honestly, like, I still run into people that aren't aware that Hummer is back, aren't aware that it's sold under the GMC nameplate, aren't aware that it's electric. Yeah, or they'll see it and just think it's a Wrangler and won't think much of it. That's honestly how I think about it. Cause like I have not seen a single Wagoneer S on the road now that I think about it.
I've
I
seen a
know,
bunch here.
have you? Well, you're in
They
California,
must
so that's
this must be where they all
regional.
are. But it's like 20 something grand off the MSRP on these
Yeah, wow.
puppies. So
I've seen one Charger
like,
EV at the gym. I
yeah,
have seen one.
I
It started up.
kind of am I'm intrigued more by the Charger. The Wagoneer S
Me
just seems
too.
like such a weird thing. Like everything about it seems wrong. It has the wrong
Right.
name. It should just be a Grand Cherokee EV because it's Grand
Right.
Cherokee
The
size.
size. That's the size it
The
is.
price tag is wrong. Like,
Yeah.
holy crap, why is it 70 something thousand
I don't
dollars?
know.
It doesn't the tires are too skinny. The software is a little bit funky. Like it
The
does not
wing is
handle
weird.
well. It's really quick and
Does it
it's
have massage seats?
does not, as far as I recall.
Yeah, for that like come on. Like then get a
Yeah.
Blazer SS. Like why would you not get a Blazer SS
Yeah.
for like 20 grand less? I actually we know somebody that bought one. I tried to talk her out of it. She's a former coworker of mine. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Really? You want that?" I think she's
Yeah.
getting rid of it because
It
she's had
just
nothing but issues.
it needs more time in the oven. It's like it's not half baked, but it's not fully cooked either. It's just a little underdone. The problem
Yeah.
is if it's an underdone cookie, I will still eat it. I'll eat the raw cookie dough. But if it's an underdone souffle, all you have is raw egg. So
Yeah.
you don't want to chow down on
Right.
that. And the
Right.
problem is like where in this window between delicious underdone chocolate chip cookie dough and raw egg is it?
Right.
It kind of depends on what you're after, but for nobody is it a fully cooked thing. That's the problem. Like, nobody would go to that thing and say this is a fully baked product.
I'm
Um,
actually shocked that they didn't pivot the Recon to be a Reeve because that
yeah,
just makes more sense for it, in my
yeah.
opinion. Like put the Hurricane 4-cylinder
Mm-hmm,
in this
mm-hmm.
thing and use the same system. It doesn't need the V6, just do a 4-cylinder and then kind of do the opposite of what you have with the 4x. Call it the 4xe and do this Recon
I
thing.
think they should call it an E by E.
Yeah, okay. All
Because it's
right, okay.
electric up front and electric in the back.
Yeah.
But yeah, no,
What
I think the bottom line here is just that product development cycles are really long, and
right.
nobody expected the Inflation Reduction Act to just vaporize in 30 seconds, right? Nobody had that on their dance card.
Yeah.
So when it went bye-bye and all the other car companies are like, well, I guess we'll just delay the whatever. I think that we are now seeing which companies had products that were early and they were like, oh, let's delay that, or let's just not do that. Or companies that had things that were too far along to
Mhm.
cancel it. And they're like, well, I guess we got to sell that anyway.
Yeah. And some that are, you know what? We think this is strong enough to come here and it happens to be electric
Mhm.
and we think it's going to
Some companies in the middle that were like, see, that's why we never bothered in the first place.
Toyota.
Kind of, to
Right.
be honest. Or Honda, because
Yeah.
Honda has their own plans, but they were slow walking them and they did the deal with GM, which was probably easier to get out of
Right.
than the sunken R&D on their own thing, which they have their
They're
own thing coming, but
it's coming just later than expected
yeah, we're going to see that Acura one first, but my expectations are a little bit muted, let's just
for the
say.
RSX. Yeah, it'll be all right. People are mad about the RSX, but we already have an Integra. So what was the RSX going to be that the Integra already wasn't?
We can end this on a one statement. I'm going to go ahead and bet though, the RSX is going to be better than a Lexus RZ.
Low bar. But will it have gears? The RZ does have gears now, which is kind of cool.
That's true.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I think that Acura is going to just leap right over that tiny little low bar. So
it might
that's
also be better than the Wagoneer S.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. How underdone will it be though? That I'm still unsure about how underdone either of those will be. Anyway, let us know what you feel about that in the comments section below. If you haven't already hit that subscribe button, be sure and mash that now. And as always, 5-star reviews are a thing. We didn't get into any of our voicemails and voice memos today, but you can always send us your voice memos to hey@autovirusguide.com. Just be sure and leave your name on that voice memo, and you can email it to us, or you can always call us on the good old-fashioned rotary phone, 669-842-1947, and leave your comments, questions, and feedback there. See everybody later.